Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
You know my story. You have heard me say it 1,000 times. I used to be in Christian radio. And sometimes I'll stumble across an old photograph or something, and I'll put that picture on the internet, put it on social media. And I did this recently. It was a publicity shot from 2001. I was still in Christian radio. It was an alternative station. We used to play the edgy stuff, man. None of this Amy Grant business. We were playing punk and rock and ska and I don't know, this Christian music that is a little edgier that you wouldn't play for the average Christian housewife, which was the demo of the regular CCM stations. I think the target audience was females ages 18 to 34. And so, you wanted to play this very unoffensive, yet somewhat catchy, kind of poppy, but not too extreme type music. Because the idea is that this would appeal to moms. Women in families, especially young families, more often would control the radio. So if you have a family all in a car or in a living room, it was more likely, statistically at the time, it was more likely that the female would determine what was being listened to, and you would get the husband and the kids by default. But with alternative Christian radio, we didn't care, man. We were going for the edgier ones. We were going for the people that were ready to break through the norms and just crank up the grunge for God. And so I was kind of a religious young gun at the time. So I had this picture taken. It was in the studio, and there's this fresh-faced, wide-eyed, young Seth Andrews, and I'm just unspoiled. I don't think that's the right word, but it's the right vibe. I've got plenty of hair, no gray. I've got great skin. I've got this fresh-faced, wide-eyed smile. I am doing God's good work. And, here I am 5, almost 25 years later, and I wonder what it might be like to get in a time machine and go back and sit down and say, okay, you need to prepare yourself, pal. Because within a decade, you are going to be hosting a global broadcast which tears down all the shit you're promoting right now. You are going to have your world completely turned upside down, or better said, flipped right side up. You are going to reevaluate your position on just about every major subject, and you will, in so many aspects, be a totally different person. You need to prepare yourself. I kind of want to do that. And would I listen to myself? Would I believe it? Would I resist it? I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. But a lot of people saw this photograph and they're like, wow, man, do you have any old audio? Do you have recordings from the Christian radio days? And I don't have many. And I had to really dig for the few that I found. And finally, I saved digital copies of them because back when I was in radio, air checks is what we call them, the recordings of your show that you would save either to be critiqued by the boss or as demos that you would give to potential employers. Let's say I want to get a job at a different station. They would want to hear a sample of what you did. So you had what we called an air check, and it was just a rapid fire sample of your on-air shtick, your announcements, the commercials that you voiced. And so I saved a few of those, but they were on cassette and a few were on mini disc. Anybody remember mini disc? Remember mini disc? And then as we moved into the total digital age, a lot of that stuff is just, where do you find a cassette deck these days? But I managed to make the conversion of some old and not always great quality audio recordings from the 1990s and early 2000s. And so, yes, you're going to go back in time and you're going to hear me back when I was a true believer. Some of the clips are going to be about Christian stuff. Some are just going to be examples of how radio is done or was done. I think they still do a lot of it the same way. You're going to hear, I think I'm going to play a commercial that I did for a Christian music company. And I'm going to go through and cherry pick some of the best/worst Christian music that I used to think was cool that really, really, really wasn't. And I remember a lot of that stuff with affection, but at the same time, I do blush. Like, wow, Seth, wow. And as you listen to this blast from my past, you will be saying, wow, as well. It's going to be a ride.
K99.3 The Rock.
K99.3 The Rock.
With our number one song on Kathy's Top 5 at 5. Number 1. You're listening to another More Music Hour. More Music Hour. South Georgia's true alternative, 90.3 The Hook.
That's one small step for man,
The Eagle has landed.
one giant leap for mankind.
Eagle 102.7. 89.9 WPER would like to thank our business partner, Bluefield College. Bluefield College offers bachelor's degrees and 21 majors of study. The college also offers an accelerated degree completion program with class sites throughout the Commonwealth. For more information, you can call 1-800-872-0175.
That was a demo I put together. It must have been around the year 2000. And you hear different call letters that are not Tulsa call letters, which is where I was based. But this is common. It became more and more a thing in the late 1990s and certainly happens now. And I'm not really spoiling anything, or maybe I am. But if you hear somebody who is doing an evening radio show or a weekend show or a midday show and they sound super local, hey, they're talking about certain street names and specific weather details, the temperature, morning show stuff going on, a contest that's happening tomorrow or the weekend or a live event or a concert. They're talking about this stuff as if they are broadcasting just down the street. There is a pretty good chance that this person may live in a totally different state and they are doing something called voice tracking. So the radio station doesn't want to hire a full-time announcer who wants to pay that plus benefits or whatever. No. Let's do this. Let's hire somebody who's got a home studio who lives pretty much anywhere else in the country, and we pay him a few $100 a month, and we send him all the info that he needs, and he just sort of rapid fire records all of the different sections of the show. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the first hour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the second hour. Takes him about a half an hour to do it all. They pipe it up onto a server location and it's downloaded to the local station and fires between the songs. So it sounds like somebody is right there talking about their hometown event and a special restaurant with the best fried chicken or, Chinese food or whatever. And the morning show tomorrow with Mike and Mandy is going to be wonderful. They're going to give away the keys to a brand new 2025 or whatever Dodge Charger. Well, there's a pretty good chance that person has never met Mike and Mandy. They have no idea what your town is like. And they have just been spoon-fed the information so they can do a show remotely on the cheap. And this is a lot of what I used to do in the late 90s and 2000s. I was on the air in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was on the air in Florida. There were a few other stations. It's been so long. So, and then I think I made up a few of the call letters just because I was trying to give my potential employer an example of what it might sound like. But I think most of the rest of this stuff, I think, is all totally local. How about a clip from This must have been 1996 or 7. I was hosting with a co-host. His name is Jim Marbles. Yes, Marbles. The show was Seth and Marbles in the morning.
KXOJ, Tulsa's family station. Rhonda Gunn, living well at 7:29 now. Seth and Marbles here until 10 o'clock.
It is so freaking frustrating. I have all of these other clips from different radio stations, the Clear Channel days, Live 1015, 92.1 Kiss FM. I guest shot it on Mix 96 and KFAQ and voice tracking and all the production, but I didn't save much from KXOJ. And I looked through every box I've got, and I've looked in my archive, and that's the only clip I can find is that one little intro. But here's a little story for you. KXOJ used to have a page. I don't know if it's still there right now, but it was part of their main website, The History of KXOJ. It was a whole page, an About Us page that said this. KXOJ FM began in February of 1977, transmitting from the tower site of Sapulpa, Oklahoma. The station has played Christian music since its sign-on, known in the early days as Excited Over Jesus. The station was started by the Stevens family and remains a family operation to this day. And we skip down. In the early 90s, the station began to take the form it's come to be known as today. Two guys named Seth and Marbles, Seth Andrews and Jim Marbles, began hosting the morning show, and the second generation of Stevens family began to work in the management of the station. And then it talks about the music boom, the rising popularity of contemporary Christian music, CCM, which exploded in the 90s. Now, you heard my name in there, didn't you? Seth Andrews and Jim Marbles. And then I became an atheist, a vocal atheist, and I wrote my autobiography, which chronicled my time at KXOJ and my deconversion, and why I think Christianity is a myth and a falsehood and often does great damage. And wouldn't you know it, KXOJ's website deleted me. The page then said, Jim Marbles began hosting the morning show, and the second generation of Stevens family began to work in the management of the station. They just erased my ass. Now, was it done because they were weird that someone might Google my name and find them and cause trouble? I doubt that. Was it an SEO thing? Maybe they were worried that by having my name on their page that it might accidentally, inadvertently drive traffic to the Thinking Atheist, where all of those godless heathens were. I don't understand why they did it. I'd like to sit them down and say, what did it cost you to allow the history to be what it is? Because the history hasn't changed. I was there. I started in 1990 working overnight shifts, 12 freaking hour overnight shifts, 6 to 6. The Gospel According to Music Part 1 and 2. I rose through the ranks. I soloed the morning show for years before Jim and I created a tandem show. The chemistry was solid. Our bits were good. The station benefited. Everybody wins. I am a 10-year piece of the history of that station, and they just deleted me. But the internet never forgets. And at web.archive.org, the old KXOJ page is still there, and I have bookmarked and saved the shit out of that page. You're not going to erase me. I was there. Right? Whether I was right or wrong, whether I was misguided or not, whether I was a Christian or an atheist, no matter what else goes on in the world, I was there. I was there. Not that I'm pissed about it. I do have pictures. I have linked a Substack article in the description box. It has the screenshots before and after from the history of KXOJ. And then there's some pics of me back at KXOJ in the studio. One is a profile by the Tulsa World, a newspaper, talking about how we were part of the next chapter in contemporary Christian music. There's a shot of us with the Imperials. They were doing a concert that night. They did a morning show guest shot with us, so we're there in the studio. And then just a single shot of a very young, fresh-faced, clean-skinned Seth Andrews with so much hair. I had so much hair. Anyway, linked in the description box if you want to see. Anyway, let's lighten things up a little bit. Here is just a random air check. I'm going to play some Christian music. I'm not going to play a lot of it. I'm just going to play some fun samples. But let me play another, just a rapid fire air check for you. And, I don't want to bore you with all this stuff, but I know you might be curious. Here we go.
The new 92.1 KISS FM. Wake up with Seth and Julie in the morning.
Ricardo Abarca is from the Mexican singing group Magneto.
Magneto, okay.
They fly the group into a big public appearance. There's thousands of fans.
Yeah.
Gets out of the chopper. He's still on the little stool where you get out of the chopper. When he raised his hand to wave to the crowd, the rotors of the helicopter chopped off 3 of his fingers. He is a popular musician in Mexico. They say he's somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 digits. Avril Lavigne, Complicated, at the new 92.1 KISS FM, the radio station that just may send you and your friends out to see Creed on the 28th of this month in Oklahoma City. Be listening next hour as we play Creed or Greed for free Creed concert tickets on the new 92.1 KISS FM. The Mix 96 updated forecast for today. Sunshine and nice 45. A cool evening, 27 overnight with clear skies. Tomorrow, same deal, sunshine and 46. We got 4 days to Thanksgiving. So far, the Thanksgiving weekend looks pretty good with temps in the 50s and 60s and sunshine. That's good news if you're traveling. Right now, we've got 47 downtown and 47 at the new Mix 96 as we kick off another 50 minutes of music with the best mix of the 80s, 90s, and today on a big 80s weekend.
Mix 96.
Jeff Brown is a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He just held a contest to find the biggest cheapskates. People who clip their nails before applying nail polish to save polish. People that wait till both shoelaces break, not just one, to save on shoelace money.
My grandfather was like that. My grandfather would actually use his pocket knife to open Christmas presents. He'd slit the scotch tape, fold the wrapping paper, and use it again next year.
Live 101.5.
When I went to ORU, my roommate was so cheap that he'd turn his underwear inside out. Yeah, it was gross.
KJSR Tulsa. Hey there, Seth Andrews with you, 10:04 in the middle of another music marathon loaded with the music Tulsa made classic. Classic rock of the 70s and more with less talk. Star 103.
Yeah, I know. I sound like a radio disc jockey. It's almost like they cranked us all out of a factory. Just rubber stamped us, just bong, 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 Then they sent us all out to radio stations around the country because we all used to talk like this as we gave the time, the date, the weather, the contests, the reason you should listen to us instead of those other guys. And the people who were really bad about this in radio, we used to call them the Pukers. So, and I was a puker for a while. Because when you get into the business, you think, well, this is what a broadcaster is supposed to do. You're supposed to sound like radio. And I hear podcasters today do this. And it's a balance between being polished and professional. There's always going to be a performative aspect to it. But at the same time, you don't want to be the rubber stamp. You don't want to be the guy that sounds like every other guy. You want to be able to come through as a flesh and blood, three-dimensional human being. You want to have a relationship with the audience. But in my first few years, I was so busy trying to be a DJ that I would talk like this. And whenever you punch the syllables, you become a puker. It took me years to calm that down and to develop an identity and to have personality, real personality, where you could actually, people felt like they could get to know you instead of hearing somebody who could be instantly replaceable by 1,500 other guys who were puking on KISS FM or KXOJs or other radio stations all around the country. Yeah. Took me a while to learn that lesson. Talk to people. Don't talk at people. It seems so basic now, but it took me a long, long time. I think we should play some Christian music clips, and I'm not talking about the vanilla stuff. I mean the fun stuff. The stuff we talk about at parties. I'm gonna do that in just a second. I'm going to give you a snapshot from my era of playing Christian music. I'm not at all as interested in the Amy Grant, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Michael W. Smith, Whiteheart, Rich Mullins, Third Day. I'm not as interested in those bands. I want to talk about kind of the fun stuff that at the time we Christians thought was kind of awesome. So the whole deal was when we saw something in pop music, rock music, metal music, about 6 months after it would become popular in the mainstream culture, you would see a Christian equivalent, #ripoff. You would see that in Christian music. So at the time, the band Iron Maiden was really popular. And a couple of guys who met in high school, Ray Paris and Steve Whitaker, formed a band called Barren Cross. In 1983, Barren Cross was awesome. Right now, go to Google, type in Barren Cross. You will see an 80s hair band wearing royal blue spandex with some of the best hairspray the decade had to offer. I think if I'm remembering right, they had like white gloves on and they were sticking their fist in the air. The name of the album that they're most famous for is Rock for the King, 1986. How could you not believe in God after hearing the wall of sound that's this?
We will for the King. We will. We will for the King.
There's a ton of this stuff. There was so much of this stuff, and we took it so seriously. Like, these guys are out rocking for Jesus, man. They're changing the world. We got to play some I've got to play some Striper. Which one should I play? Which clip? How about, and I saw this concert at the Brady Theater, Tulsa, Oklahoma, second row. How about a clip from the song from the album, both titled To Hell with the Devil? Talk about spandex. These guys went out, massively hairsprayed hair in yellow and black spandex. Everything was yellow and black. I think they called the band Striper. They were known as the Yellow and Black Attack. And they would take New Testaments with the band name on them. And in the middle of the concert, they would just throw the Bibles out into the audience. And we thought it was great, man. They're literally spreading the word. What did that accomplish? How many of us actually read that thing? We'd stuck it on a shelf and thought, wow, I got a Striper Bible, but we already had Bibles. The average household has 3 Bibles, and the same was true back then. So they were throwing us something we already had, except it had the band name on it. Maybe that's good marketing. I don't know. Here's a band that, don't judge me, I still have a soft spot for. I know Petra is a punchline. I know it. But it was, they say that the music that you listen to between the ages of, I think it's 14 and 21, in some ways becomes the most cherished music of your life. Now, this isn't really true with me, but there is a truth about it, that the music from that time period transports me back to specific memories, and many of them fond ones. And I remember my friend Stephanie in Miss Mahaffey's homeroom class giving me or letting me borrow her Petra Not of This World cassette. And I fell in love with the album. And I still have a soft spot for this song.
We are strangers. We are aliens. We are not of this world. We are strangers. We are aliens. We are not of this world.
Petra was known as one of the pioneers of Christian rock and CCM. They were formed in 72, and they have had several lead singers over the years. But Greg Volz, who you just heard, the guy had a 4-octave range. I shit you not. He did a version on a future solo album. He did a version of Aerosmith's Dream On, and he pulled it off. I mean, it's not as good as the original, but that is, talk about range. To be able to pull that off vocally, he was a weird cat. He was an odd dude. I'm not defending Christian music. I'm not trying to be an apologist for the genre. I'm just saying it's pretty ballsy to do that, and his version wasn't bad.
Dream on, 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 yeah. Sing with me, sing for the year, sing for the laughter, sing for the tears. Sing with me just for today, never tomorrow, 'cause the good Lord will take you away. Take you away.
Judge me, criticize me, ridicule me, mock me all you want. I thought that was good. I mean, I thought he pulled it off. I did. Not as good as the original, but go ahead. Come after me in the comments. Go ahead. I'm all yours, baby. I'm right here. Let's go. It's on. It's on. Here's another example of a band taking on a classic, not nearly as successfully, but this is just my subjective opinion. There was a group called Rachel. They released their first album, I think, in 1991. They were known as the first female American Christian rock band. Cheryl Jewell on vocals, Hailey Sterner on guitar, also Brianne Beltran, Jennifer York, Jennifer Sparks. This was a 5-person female band, and somewhere in a meeting, they decided they were going to take on Kansas. Carry On My Wayward Son.
Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think, I still was a madman. I hear his voice when I'm dreaming. I can hear him say, carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
There are a few people who will give them respect for making the attempt, and others are going to say that they have desecrated the sacred. They have literally pissed on a classic. I'll let you have that discussion, okay? I think there were several other covers that were attempted. I think almost. Oh, you know what? Here's one. Here's a total ripoff. So, what year was this? Let me Google it. 1985. We Are the World was a hunger relief anthem written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, produced by Quincy Jones and Michael O'Mardian. So, all of the pop and rock artists, these iconic names, iconic names, who all got in the same freaking room. Paul Simon, James Ingram, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, Huey Lewis, Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Daryl Hall, Willie Nelson. It was crazy, unprecedented. They all got together in a room with microphones dropping out of the ceiling, and they recorded We Are the World. And I forget how much they raised, like $20 million to feed hungry people in Africa. Well, Christians looked around and they're like, shit. All of these seculars are doing missions work that we should have thought to do. So rather than come up with an idea of their own, Christian artists put together, a direct ripoff of We Are the World. They got all these named artists, they threw them in the studio, they shot it the same way, and then, red-faced with embarrassment, they released their song called Do Something Now. Okay, I'm going to play both back to back for you, and you can YouTube the videos and you'll see the visual similarities, aka ripoff. But here's We Are the World. Okay, and here's the Christian version that came out just a few months later. And this kind of thing was rampant. If pop, rock, secular music had something, some artist, wouldn't be long before one of the Christian labels said, we got to have one of those. We got to have the Jesus equivalent of one of those, right? If it's sold out there, Christian audiences must want it here. And there was, in many ways, there were direct ripoffs. We had our own version of Paul McCartney. We had our own version of Joe Cocker. We had our own version of Sheena Easton. We had our own version of Wilson Phillips. It was just, there's a lot of that going on at the time. Now, the 80s and 90s loved the anthem, kind of the rock anthem and the boy band. And so this next guy was a combination of both. He was just one dude. He's like this 80-pound white dude trying to look cool in a leather jacket on the album cover. And the song in the album that he was known for was called Pray in the USA. And the message was a riff on, they're taking prayer, they're taking God out of our schools. But you know what? God's law trumps all. Here's the chorus. Lyrics from the song include, teacher saying, can't be praying, says it's against the rules. We're free today in the USA, but not here in my school. I got news for you today. You can't stop a heart that prays. He says, I'm no rebel, just a pebble stuck in some judge's shoe. My bended knee may not be free, but my heart's gonna break on through. They're pouring fuel on the fire, trying to stop what God desires. Here's the bridge. I find this a most telling section of the song. Oh yeah, someday they're going to make prayer a felony, which makes me a criminal, and I'm going to proudly embrace my criminality. Now, what's fascinating is that Morgan Cryer, straight, white, heterosexual, evangelical, conservative Christian male, the least persecuted demographic in the entire United States. And he's playing the rebel without a country card and talking about how they're coming after me, but I'm going to fight back. That was Christianity and kind of remains so today. Let me play something for you, and this will be a longer clip. I'm sure that wherever this releases, I'll probably get a copyright strike, or because I want to play enough of them. I'm probably going to get 50 of them since I'm playing all these clips. YouTube is terrible about that, or maybe it's necessary. It's their material. Okay, fine. Phil Keaggy was vocally our Paul McCartney. He is also, and he remains, today he is still performing. He is also one of the greatest guitar players in the world. Christian artist. Throw stones all you want, jeer and sneer. Often Christian music totally deserves it. Phil Keaggy is one of the greatest guitar players in the world. But let me do the vocal thing first. Let me play this clip of the song Spend My Life With You. This has got to be late 70s. Check this out.
Come over me. Can't keep from closing my eyes. The day is gone, but you carry on, watching, protecting me into the dawn.
Okay, maybe he doesn't sound a lot like Paul McCartney, but we kind of got those vibes. I honestly think he wasn't trying to sound like anybody. It was just who he was. It was just his voice. But I'm more interested in his masterful guitar playing. Let me back up. I don't know how much of this I'm going to play, but I'm going to play some Keaggy. Phil Keaggy on the Flip Side album, Off the Record. That's a studio video that he's got posted on YouTube. I got to play some more. This one just zens me out. Performing in Ohio like 15 years ago, he did this magical version of Deep Calls Unto Deep. Here's a clip. Just one more. Religious, not religious. You got to admire there's a whole library of his work, and a lot of it is instrumental, which is where I tend to go. I don't like to listen to songs that are selling a message that, frankly, is false. And I don't know where my line is, because there are occasions where I can separate. It's like Christmas carols. Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Silent Night, or whatever. I like the songs. They're getting me in the spirit of the season. I see it as mythology. I don't see them as evangelical tools or indoctrination tools, which some would argue with. But there's something about the industry of Christian music that I feel like is more mission-centered instead of culture-centered, holiday-centered. This is really more go ye into all the world and make converts. I'm also a bit cynical because I have seen the business side of the business. A lot of people say that Christian artists are the people who couldn't make it in the show, so they went over here. That's unfair. There are some examples of that. I won't mention names. That's a totally subjective opinion anyway. But there are a lot of other wonderful people. Absolutely talented, amazing, wonderful, hardworking, committed, dedicated human beings who are believers, who consider what they do a privilege and an honor, and they want to share their gift and they want to share the gospel at the same time. They're doing what they do for the best of reasons. So I think it's totally unfair to, we like to snipe and joke that Christian music, contemporary Christian music, is the turkey bacon of music. There are examples of that. I've played a few of them here, but there are also a number of really talented people who are doing what they do. That's just my little editorial. I'm going to take one more break, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to do a little more talk radio where I get political. Blush. Hang on. It is memory lane today as I go back to my Christian radio past. Okay, here's another demo from the old FM days.
K99.3 The Rock is KPSM, Brownwood, Texas. Tulsa's premier outdoor festival is back and bigger than ever. June 7th and 8th, Coca-Cola and U.S. Cellular present Clear Channel Riverfest. Embark into the mission field. Spread the gospel in exotic foreign lands across the globe. For nearly 50 years, Compassion International has been teaming up with local churches and church-related projects in developing countries like Uganda. Coming August 30th through September 1st, it's Team Impact. Come see world-class athletes perform incredible feats of strength and power. Pillar, the Benjamin Gate, and East West. The Fireproof Tour comes to Tulsa May 7th at the First United Methodist Youth Center downtown. Brought to you by ILoveCheapCars.com. Tickets are only $6 and on sale right now at both Mardell stores in Tulsa. Come on! And on our website at live1015.com.
Oh my God. If you'll pardon the expression, that takes me back. Pillar, I think POD was big. We played Lifehouse. we had these crossover bands that occasionally would be popular on pop and rock radio, but we could also play them on our station because we felt like they were safe and they had in some way professed a faith or had acted like a religious person. And so we were kind of building that bridge between the secular and the religious. But man, that just gave me a flash. That gave me a flash. 25 years ago. Whew, wow. Okay. So there are two local conservative talk radio stations in Tulsa, AM 740 KRMG and 1170 KFAQ. KFAQ, a Fox News affiliate. And Michael and Gwen were the morning show host. Gwen was a dear friend of mine, and I just, even today, respect the hell out of her for her talent and her heart. Just a lovely person. But remember, back then, I was a true blue Fox News, Rush, Limbaugh, Ronald Reagan, William F. Buckley. Jesus was a capitalist, conservative Christian. So when Michael would go on vacation, KFAQ would ask me to come sit in the host chair, and we were talking about the war. I cannot believe this. We were talking about the war on Christmas.
Oh, you know what? Gee, maybe I need to remind everybody. You know this day that you're going to get off on Tuesday of next week? The entire nation shuts down, including your local Albertsons. You know, that day is Christmas.
Actually, Albertson's going to shut down anyway.
Including your local Walmart. I forgot about that. Okay, but the fact of the matter...
The whole baby Jesus thing just totally gets in the way at Christmas.
I know.
You know? I mean, what have we become?
The government shuts down?
What have we become?
Even the atheists out there and the people who are anti-Christian and anti-everything else, you're going to get a day off on Tuesday. Why? Because it's Christmas. Not because it's winter. Not because it's a holiday celebrating, you know, snowflakes. It's because there was a Savior born to Christians, our holiest day, and that's the whole story. That's why you're getting the day off. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. Lori's got the story.
Well, I just have to tell you something. Yesterday I was going to pick up my 3-year-old from preschool. He goes to a private church preschool. Talking to my sister-in-law, whose boys go to a public school in the area. She says, oh gosh, I had to go buy cookies. I had to do this and that for their party today. And I said, oh, we did too. We had a book exchange. And I said, but we had a celebration of Jesus' birthday. What did you have? And she said, oh, no. It was a winter party.
A winter party.
What exactly do you do at a winter party?
They ate cupcakes and cookies and exchanged books.
And say non-religious things to each other?
I guess, but when I picked up my son, I was telling Elvis it was great. They had a big Christmas tree in his classroom, and his teacher said, Merry Christmas, Cannon, and he said, Merry Christmas, and it was great. I loved it.
I think the tide is starting to shift, isn't it? People are starting to get, it was like the tree in Rockefeller Center, Rockefeller Plaza, when it was the holiday tree. People just got so ticked, they finally said, all right, fine, it's Christmas. But have you noticed how more tolerant that, like I grew up in a Protestant religious home, right?
Right.
Well, we got a Christmas tree in our home. You know, the Christmas tree, wasn't that a pagan symbol of fertility back in its day?
It doesn't have anything to do with religion.
Santa Claus, we got Santa, we got all those symbols. And you know what? We welcome and accept it. It's all good. We got Frosty, we got Rudolph.
Yeah.
But if you fall on the other side of that coin and you begin to pull in the nativity scene, everybody flips out.
And I'm starting to get angry at you trying to mess with my holiday. So for non-Christians, pick another holiday.
You know, the thing is if you do that, more people will be offended by not getting a paid day off than they would be about Christ being removed from the Christmas holiday. Oh, you removed Christ? You'd be like, oh, well, whatever, that's horrible. I gotta take the day off without pay! Oh, now it's on.
You know what? This whole inclusion thing, I forget it. You're not invited. If you don't believe in Christmas, then you're not invited to the celebration.
Don't you feel like our way of life is under attack? Don't you feel it's a moment of crisis and the tide has got to turn? And I'm probably partially to blame because I represent a whole lot of people who are so busy just doing our thing with our families that we don't express outrage, really, to anybody who matters. You know, we don't communicate to our people, to our Congress. We don't do that. We go, oh, you're not a bunch of freaking politicians, and we continue living our lives. But don't you think the vast majority of people don't even go there?
we've ignored most of this.
We try to ignore it because it's a nice time of year and we don't want to engage in some sort of political stupid debate.
Do you feel like the reason Huckabee surged in the polls was partially because he went on the air and said, whatever, Merry Christmas?
I promise you.
You heard it. You heard evidence. I think this may have been 2003 or 4. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I was a video producer at the time, but they had invited me back to sub. You heard it. I actually defended Mike Huckabee. Oh, my God. Shame. It's like that scene with the nun with the bell in Game of Thrones. Ding, shame. Ding, shame. Shame. And I had bought into the whole, they're trying to take Christ out of Christmas. It's our holiday. Everybody else is trying to steal it. I'm just ashamed. But I'm throwing myself in front of you. I'm laying myself bare at your feet. I'm letting you see what I was like 20 years ago. Because I was. I said it because I thought it. And I thought it because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And I think in many ways, I was so desperate to be persecuted. You know, if I'm under attack, if my Jesus is under attack and I'm a Jesus warrior, I'm a better Christian. So now I'm a hero in my own story. I didn't know anything. I mean, I think I referenced the pagan origins of the Christmas tree, but the truth is I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I knew it was a pagan fertility symbol or whatever, but I mean, I hadn't really dug into Saturnalia and the Druids and all of these other pre-Christian traditions and the plagiarism of, you know, Christianity, of all kinds of different holidays. I have shame. Ding. Shame.
Some of the other issues we're going to talk about. I have a really great story on global warming. And you go, how could any story in the world be great on global warming? I have one. Okay? For those of you still on the fence about global warming, okay? And if you're here in Tulsa after this ice storm hit and you're without power and you're still like a tree hugging global warming, person, I've got a perfect story for you today.
Have you noticed every time they have a summit on global warming, there's always a record cold outside of wherever it's at? I was
every
reading
time.
Last week they're meeting in D.C. or something, and they're like, record snowfall.
Hey, what do you think the UN met in Bali this year?
Now, the problem with
what are the chances of it snowing in Bali?
The problem with global warming is then they always say, well, the cold is also a result of global warming. It's very complicated.
Right.
So there's no way for those of us with any common sense to win the argument, Oh, the cold, high wind, snow, that's all global warming.
Droughts, floods, all of it.
Now, over the past 3 minutes, you have been fantasizing about reaching through the speakers of whatever player you are listening on and slapping my face. Slapping sense into the young Seth. Relax, I feel exactly the same way. I was very slappable. Not understanding anything about climate change. You know how much scientific literature I had read about climate change in 2004? None. Zip. All I knew about it was what I heard on freaking Rush Limbaugh and Fox News. Limbaugh used to say that Mount Pinatubo refuted climate change. Mount Pinatubo, the volcano, had erupted and apparently had blown enough, he said, carcinogens or something into the atmosphere, far more than humankind throughout history could have ever done. So it was arrogant to think that people could affect the climate. That was his major argument. And I'm sitting on the other end of the speaker going, wow, that makes perfect sense. No, I didn't know the difference between weather and climate. I didn't understand how median global temperatures were, in fact, on historic rise, and how The warm air mass blows up through the jet stream to drop Arctic air down, which causes a shitstorm of wild and wacky weather, often wintry weather, but it's still a median increase. There's so much. I hadn't read one article by a climate scientist. I'm on the radio in front of thousands of people giving them my opinion. And this is indicative of the culture I came out of. I knew evolution was wrong, never read Darwin on the origin of species, and I never took a single class from an evolutionary biologist. I knew we were created. I had never actually properly learned from a cosmologist or astrophysicist about the nature of our galaxy, of our solar system, of the universe. I knew the Bible is true. I didn't know who wrote the Bible. That's me. Anyway, there it is, front and center, matter of record, Seth Andrews, the younger conservative evangelical Christian Republican who finally escaped. And now, like King Theoden in Lord of the Rings, I breathe the free air. And now I speak in my own liberated voice. Thanks for letting me take you back in time and kind of show you what I was as opposed to where I am. If nothing else, it maybe gives you hope that there's hope for others as well. Let's not give up hope. I will see you back here next time. Be safe. Take care.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming free thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.